sarvam vihaya paramarthave paripurna chidananda swarupenavatisthate रूपवर्णादिकं सर्वं विहाय परमार्थवे परिपूर्णचिदानन्द स्वरूपेणावतिष्ठते. Having discarded his identification with all forms, colors, etc., Rupa, Varna, Adi. The enlightened rests as an embodied of infinite consciousness and bliss. Paripurna Chidananda Swarupenavatisthate. Rests as an embodiment of infinite consciousness. Rests in his own intrinsic form. And the nature of that intrinsic form, he says, is infinite consciousness and infinite bliss. So, what do you straightforward understand? Having discarded the identification with the names and forms, or forms and colors, so is as exactly have we understood. So when we look at the world, what is it that we perceive? We see the innumerable plurality, the unending list of plurality, which creates the separation and the distinction. So here he says, having discarded his identification. So the whole principle of attachment and detachment. So as we understand, the term identification is nothing but attachment. Another term, when you identify with something, you are attached to it. And when you attach to something, you become it. So when you have discarded the identification, which is nothing but non-identification, when you don't identify with something, non-identification is detachment. So identification is nothing but attachment. Non-identification is detachment. Here he says the practitioner, having discarded his identification with all the names and forms, he has attained that state of enlightenment. And having attained that, and he describes what is that enlightened state. That enlightened state is where he revels in that infinite consciousness and infinite bliss. Paripurna. It's such a beautiful state. Paripurna is to experience that state of fullness, completeness, wholeness. Purnam is whole. So that sense of completeness, fullness, Chidananda. Ananda is that infinite bliss. So the attributes of spiritual evolution, now he is describing the absolute state. But a relative state, the description of a spiritual evolved person is, he is intrinsic. When you become introverted, what is that? You become paripurna. You are very contented. You are reveling in that state of peace and bliss. Opposite of that, the best way to understand the opposite of that, of paripurna, is, what is the Sanskrit word for opposite of paripurna? Huh? I'm lost for Sanskrit words. What is the Ama? Our Sanskrit Pandit is talking. Sai, what is this?
Hari Om Guruji. It's Asampurna means incomplete. Some
Chumma, you're going adding one word, Asampurna opposite. Dictionary unda dictionary lo.
Ante spoken
Mana language lo antara.
Colloquials and antar kadan. Ante ekkado vinnanu vaadu spoken lo, but
I don't think there is a word called Asampurna.
sorry, I just heard something.
No. What is that opposite Sanskrit word for shunyam? Shunyam is nil, or that's what Soumya Padmini Ma has said. Shunyam. Asamtrupti, discontented. See, we are talking of Purna is wholeness, a fullness, a completeness, a sense of emptiness, a sense of a void. Whatever be the word, get hold of that term. May not be there's an equivalent word, but you understand the concept. So a state of discontentment, where no amount of why one experiences this level of discontentment. So we need to have a rationale, isn't it? Why am I discontented, and why is that man so contented? The state of contentment, where does that state of contentment arise from? Reddy Garu, your backdrop is very disturbing me. I don't know, suddenly where you are, we are concerned, we can't even leave the house. Suddenly you've transported yourself to some very, is it a factory? What is this? Where? What is that? Confusing.
Pranam Guruji, it's in a view, a poster of one of the site we executed.
So are you at that site, or is just a poster?
Pranam Guruji, able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear. Can you all hear him?
Able to hear me?
Yes, we all can hear you.
Yeah, this is one of the poster where we executed a project.
No, the important thing is, why is that as the backdrop now? What is the symbolic representation is the question.
I don't know. It is a surprise to me. It is not my intention.
A surprise to you also. then it's acceptable.
So let me do my work and try to change that poster. I don't know how it has been surprised.
Don't worry about it now. But what the question is, why are we relatively finding ourselves ever discontented? Vis-a-vis here is a man who is paripurna.
In my view, it could be endless desires, ambitions is the one where we're never able to be contented.
It is endless desires that leave us discontented. Yeah, you have a point. Anybody, any other thought? Where do you go? Where is it? How is it we find contentment? See, as long as our attention is extroverted, the thumb rule we all know, as long as our attention is extroverted, one can never be contented in life. So the secret of finding contentment, even at a relative level, It doesn't necessary that you have to reach a state of realization to find that absolute contentment. Even a relative level, I couldn't be an entrepreneur, I can be a sportsman, I could be a student, I could be anybody in any walk of life. I can be a businessman, I can be a spiritual practitioner. Doesn't matter what field of activity or the field of activity you are is based by your vasanas. No? Your vasana is it that creates a field of activity for you. The field of activity is determined by the vasana, which I'm born with. I can't do much with it. That's my swadharma. But how I operate, in fact, yesterday or other day, I don't know when was that, recently, we were talking about these two terms, the field of operation and the mode of operation, isn't it? The field of operation is the swadharma. Swadharma gives you the field of operation, which is where you operate. Where you operate is your vasanas. You have your vasanas, could be music, could be business, could be medicine, could be engineering, could be accounting, could be philosophy. That is the field of operation. Now the mode of operation is determined by your inner attitude. So as an individual, do I bring in an attitude of extroversion or introversion? If I am an extroverted, I could be an extroverted philosopher, I could be an introverted philosopher. I could be an extroverted businessman, I could be an introverted businessman. I could be an extroverted student, an introverted student. So the moment your attention is introverted, you will find the benefits of that is you are very contented. So relatively, we all can experience that level of contentment. And absolutely, he says, you are reveling in that state of consciousness, which is infinite consciousness, infinite bliss. And why do you get that? Because you have disidentified, discarded identification. As I've said in the beginning, the detachment is non-identification, attachment is identification. Now, it is impossible to be free from attachment. It's impossible. All through your life, you have to be attached to something or the other. I suppose you understand the principle, isn't it? You have to be attached. But the question is, what are you attached to? So here, he has attached himself to the self and is detached himself to the names and forms. You know, when Swami Ramatirtha, when he used to address people, he used to start his lecture not by Sahana Lavatu, Sahana Bunaktu, nothing, no invocation, no pratasmarami, nothing. He used to say, I bow down to the Atman in all of you. My dear brothers and sisters, you know, he used to say. And he lectured in the United States in 1901, 1902. And he says, I see the self in all of you all. So you go beyond the color, creed, caste, community, country, spiritual status, economic status, good, bad, sinner, saint, benevolent person, malevolent person, your son or son-in-law, daughter or daughter-in-law, neighbor, friend or foe. None of these differences exist because you are identifying with the Atman in them. But the moment you're not able to identify with the Atman, instantly you are left with other divisions and demarcations which arise, and then you end up with identifying. And the moment you identify with the differences, what arises the moment you identify with the differences? There arises otherness. And moment is otherness. There is hatred, animosity, bitterness, friction, sorrow, suffering. This is the price you have to pay, I have to pay, if you don't attune to the self. So the moment you are able to identify with the Atman, there is no differences. The moment there is differences, from the difference arises otherness. From the otherness arises hatred, bitterness, animosity, friction, sorrow, suffering. These are the inevitable consequences. Now, how do you break the otherness? How do you break the differences? Try to identify with something you can identify as a commonality. It sounds so simple. The moment you identify with a person as a human being, what is it that disappears? Think along with what I've said just now. All that differences I've said. The moment you if you are able to identify that person as a human being, sounds so simple, isn't it? That's a very lofty spiritual state, to be able to see another person just as a human being. The moment you identify with them as a human being, what is it that disappears? Vaidyanathanji, what is it that disappears, sir?
The gulf between the two, if you see that as a human being, all the external differences between the two bodies disappear. You're only looking at the person, the individual, the soul, the Atman, and not his other shortcomings or his other qualifications. You're looking at.
I'm not even talking of Atman in him. I'm only treating him as another human.
Right. All the differences disappear.
This morning, I was just helping my daughter fill a form. And it had to be in the writing of the candidate. And there was a section, please fill in your caste. And there were 12 options. And then there were any other subcasts, a big line to fill if you are subcaste. And then this girl was asking me, Appa, what is this? What is this? What is this? What is this? What is OC? What does subcaste mean? What is this? It's not that whether she is knowledgeable or not, whether she knows or not, but the fact that they exist. They exist. It is a reality. And then religion is an existing fact. Whether you're baptized or non-baptized, whether you're this or that, which country, which nationality, your sex, this, that. It's like a huge pyramid where you're all under these divisions. But if I see as a human, what disappears, Vaidyanathanji?
All of these qualifications disappear.
Who created all this?
We have created it. Man has created it.
We have created
Human
all
beings
this.
have created it. Yes.
I have created it. So
right.
It is my creation that is blocking my vision of the Atman, the self. I have created it. So when I look at you from a pain of caste, or I can see you from a pain of religion. I can see a pain through whether you are cultured or uncultured, whether you're educated or uneducated, or your country or your social status or your background. And it's such a challenge to just clear all this which clouds my perception to see what is there. I'm not able to see. So just to see someone as a human in itself is such a big challenge, isn't it? It's a very high level, please. We talk Atman, Brahman, but just to see another person as a human, and let not these come and distort your ability to identify, just to see that person as a fellow human. You may come to the level of a fellow human, but then you'll have problem with other creatures. You can't identify with other creatures. You love them so much that you have to eat them. You love them so much that you destroy them. There's such a huge campaign which not started now. It's been there out for a long time. There was a time, I think 15 years or ago, I think early days, I remember when this came out, there was a documentary called Earthlings. I suggest in the time, if you have a sparing time, it is there on the net. The documentary is called Earthlings, EARTHLINGS. And I must tell you, it will challenge any one of you to sit without, if you're not objective, you can't see it. It just tells the journey the animal kingdom go through before they reach your palate. What journey, what is it that they are subjected to, which everybody are oblivious? And when I had a gathering, I remember I was in Malaysia those days, and we had in one of the auditoriums where we used to hold our classes, we actually aired this program. We got the documentary and we aired. 10-15 people walked out. They said, we can't, it's too ghastly. I can't stand and even, I can't sit and I can't see the program. So they walked out. It is that powerful. It triggered such deep guilt in some people. I said, oh my God. And some people instantly said, I don't think I can continue to be a meat eater anymore. I don't think I can afford to carry on what it is. So it was such a powerful eye opener. Has any one of you watched it? Then you know what I'm talking about. Oh, none of you have seen it. What a pity. What a pity. You should watch it. It really created ripple waves throughout the world. It was done by a Western, I think it was, I think I could be wrong, but I think it is that famous American actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, I think he was involved either in campaigning it or he endorsed it, something, it caught great thing. But what I'm trying to say is you may have love for all fellow human beings, but then you'll not be able to identify with fellow creatures. So somewhere down the line, we buckle, we are not able to identify. Okay. So it's a very clear message. So it's just about finding out where I am. What is my level of identification? The road ahead, we know. Where do you have to go? I have to go beyond the differences and see the Atman. It's like the Mount Everest of all challenges. You can be a very fit athlete, but it will knock the best of them out. The best of them can't scale Mount Everest. So it is that kind of a challenge to be able to see the Atman in everyone. It's like saying, can I give you a very jarring example? Vasantama, or a jarring example kuduklama? But you have to be you must forgive me before only.
Sorry, Guruji, we were typing something. We missed what you said.
See, I know, I see what you all have typed and things. It's my personal suggestion, however you feel, but adapt yourself. See, it is important you think along, every one of you think along with me. So participate unless and until you're asked for. So till then you're thinking along. And if you have something to say, we can speak out so it doesn't distract you and it distract others to read what continuously the chat that's happening. For example, as it happened right now, I'm trying to engage Amma, but there are genuinely communicating something. So to that extent, they have lost track, and we all have lost track. So I would suggest refrain from using the chat box. Please refrain as minimal as possible, so that you're all with me and we all can participate. So if you have something, please raise hand. We all can engage. So we're thinking along. Okay. So what I was asking is I was seeking a forgiveness. Have you forgiven me beforehand?
I don't find any reason to forgive you, Guruji. You don't. There's no this thing at all.
No. The example I'm going to take, I said. So see, like I said, I don't know. I forgot what I want to say. See, it's
a
like
jarring example. You said some jarring.
Yeah, I remember. But what context I wanted to say? A jarring example.
The different.
Subsequent to earthlings.
No, not subsequent to earthlings, Ji. What was it I was saying? Yes, Vaidyanathan Ji, idea? You seem to...
No, you were talking about earthlings, and then from that you said we'll take a jarring example. Can you handle that? And then before that, you wanted to warn us about how ghastly it's going to be.
No, that I did say. See, I did attempt, or I did explain about it challenges the best of us to scale Mount Everest. Remember, I said that. After that, I mentioned. So it is going to be very demanding. So is seeing the Atman. Where should you see Atman? It's like if I said very two jarring examples. Somehow this some kind of a video that came and I couldn't see it. I just stopped and in between I couldn't see it, but it just, the thought stuck in my head. There's a particular restaurant somewhere in Japan. Now this is not the example I want to take. There's a restaurant in Japan. The food that is served, the tables, the table are designed in what shape? Any idea? Siddharaman sir.
Animal. See, the one you are referring, it is a lot of such restaurants are in China also. They bring live animals onto the.
No, I'm not talking of animals. I've moved on from animals. But there was this, such, as I said, such a jarring, so revulsive, even to think of. All the entire restaurant theme, all the tables, the chairs they sit on, the design is, it look like exactly of the commode. The commode, the toilet potty. All is the shape of commode. So actually, use the seat. It's very comfortable. They put a cushion on top of it and you sit. And then the food comes on small miniaturized commodes. And the food comes in the shape of different kind of stools. It looks exactly of the different kinds of stools a human passes. The food comes, looks like it, and people are enjoying it. If I say that also is Atman, filth also is Atman, garbage also is Atman, can I worship Atman? We sanctify temple, we sanctify a place of worship. Brahman is everywhere, no? Can we see Brahman there? Can we see Atman in it? What are you talking? That's why I say it's too jarring to even to relate to. God is there in the best of things and the worst of things. Am I right? Do we divinize death? We're not able to see God playing his role there, isn't it? We're not able to understand, isn't it? So it is not that easy to identify with Brahman or Atman in every aspect of life. But where do you start with? You start with seeing God in the most auspicious of things. But then slowly you start accommodating and understanding Brahman in every aspect of life. So good or bad, right or wrong, profit or loss, birth or death, everything is his prasad. It is his leela. It is his creation. It is a mysterious ways of things happening. You accept it as Lord's grace, isn't it? But you start from somewhere, but you got to spread it. It is that challenging to see Atman everywhere. That's what I'm saying. It's not easy. That's why I say it's like a scaling Mount Everest. It is not easy to see Atman everywhere. It's like seeing God in seeing God in garbage, in filth. That also is Brahman. That also is God. Because we say, what is the definition of God, Rajima? What is it that we have been told God is?
Omnipresent and omniscient.
Omnipresent. If it's omnipresent, it should be there, isn't it?
Yes, Guruji.
But then why is it we are not able to see God there in filth and dirt? It is there, but why can't we see it?
Lack of understanding or identification with what we consider as auspiciousness is only where God exists.
Our association of thoughts, isn't it?
Yes.
We associate only certain things as
we say that
divine.
God cleanliness is next to godliness. Those kind of things we are associated with.
Yeah.
So we can't associate God with filth.
We can't. Even when there's a flower you're offering, if there's a flower which is, not perfect, you don't offer. A fruit which is not perfect, you don't offer.
True.
But so to rise above that and to see that universality is a different. That's who was it who highlighted this? Bhakta Kannappa. His crudeness of devotion, Lord Shiva appeared. You know the story, isn't it? He couldn't carry the water from the river. He had made a small trough with leaves, and by the time he brought the leaf from the river to the temple, there was nothing left. And he tried a few times and he couldn't. And then what he did? He put some water in his mouth. He could hold on that water for a while. He spit it. Would you ever do that? You can't consider that. It's the most inauspicious things. But yet, God appeared in front of him. He offered meat to the Lord. He put his feet on that statue of that Lord Shiva. His crudeness of devotion was accepted by the Lord. Lord appeared. I'm only recalling of that, how beautifully the whole concept was picturized in that movie. The movie was titled Bhakta Kannappa, the devotion of that great Kannappa who was a devotee of Lord Shiva. So this is what we got to envision. So why are we saying this? To be able to accommodate imperfection, to accommodate a flaw and see a potential goodness, see a potential divinity there as well. Rather than disliking or hatred or aversion, I can say that also is Brahman. That also is God. So I'm allowing the higher ray of force, the higher thought to come into that imperfection. It is easy to see godliness in a saint. It is difficult to see godliness in a sinner. But yet the God is same in a sinner and saint. But let me start identifying with areas where I don't identify. That is where my growth is, isn't it? Let me start identifying with God where I can't see. not where you can see. You go to Guruvayur temple, you are divinized. You go to Tirupati Balaji, you are in heavenly experience. No, no. Take a visit to the MCH garbage collection center and stand there for 5 minutes and see divinity there. You are very high level. To have everything your way, you are contented, no big deal. Your children are fine, your grandchildren are fine, your bank balance is fine, your investments are fine, your home is fine, your health is fine, your spouse's health is fine, your friends and family are fine, everything's fine. I'm happy and contented. No big deal to be contented that way. If one or two factors in that equation of your life goes off balance, what happens to your level of contentment? What happens to your level of balance? Off you go. You buckle, isn't it? So this is what we got to learn to develop, that sense of non-reliance, non-dependence, to be self-sufficient. That's what the verse 40 says. All right, let's move on.